Today, I'm really excited because I have my colleague and friend Burt Phillips here from Attuned Marketing Partners. Burt and I have worked together for a few years now on various client projects, gotten to know him a little bit, and he has a really big passion just for doing right by the customer and the client and making sure that their marketing is showing up in a fresh and unique way that's relevant. I really appreciate that authentic approach that he has, and he's an interesting guy. He likes to research a lot of fun stuff. So he's going to have a lot of fun things to share with us today. So Burt, thanks so much for being here.
Valerie, you being kind. My background is interesting because I started as a client and I was in the agency world. Now I'm kind of a hybrid because we have a virtual agency that just works really closely with clients. We're kind of joined at the hips with them. And, I think now it's such an interesting time in the marketing world, just a time of incredible change. I think it's a time of opportunity, but, we've had to learn so many new things. And now we're learning a lot more things. But I think that comes with opportunities.
Yeah. What are some of the things that you feel like are really changing so fast now compared to before? Because I thought things moved fast before.
Well, I think just how content is created is changing so fast. I think too, you're seeing a lot of companies and organizations really recognize how important it is to get their marketing right. That's great. Then we have others that they kind of know they want to get aboard, but just getting there is a whole new thing. And just what. I'm not sure I don't have technological brainstorms to share with Valerie. I have a lot of cases where, as you've seen with some of our clients, where, where the company has a great product or service, but they want to get their message across better, but they're not sure how to do that.
Yeah.
They've done it. One of the challenges we have it right now is I think you have a lot of companies that have done it this way, and this way worked for a long time, but now this way is not working like it used to. So, and changing that mix is an interesting process, and just is one we enjoy digging in with our clients to help them do that.
Yeah. It is interesting. When I first got into doing a lot in the content creation space, social media had just become a thing for businesses. And it was this big shift between, the traditional marketing approaches with billboards and, TV commercials and print, this and that and the other. It may be a little bit on the web, to being very focused on digital.
Right.
And honestly, that's how I got my start. Was the folks heading up the agency, they said, we don't know how to do social media, but you do.
Right.
You want to do it for these businesses. And that's how I got my start in social media was, just getting thrown in, partly because I was the right place, right time, and knew a little bit. But yeah, people are resistant to change. So getting them to think about things being so different now is, there's a big mental shift going on.
And things that we read about and heard about have become reality, where the customer really is king in the digital world so much.
Yeah.
And we have to honor that, and they expect to have the information out there. They want you telling their story. And at the same time, we have to make it easy for them to understand kind of, what we do and how we might provide value for them. But if we don't get that right, and they will leave quickly, as you know.
Yeah.
So the opportunities are endless for us, but we have to honor them. And it's one of the things that I've seen change is that, the marketing people and the sales people and some of the organizations didn't always get along. Well, now they're having to get along a bit more, or the organizations that are being successful are recognizing that these two parts of the organization have to work much more effectively together. And in so much, of course, of the e-commerce, you've streamlined the channels, incredibly. But
yeah, I'm noticing sales and marketing being in the same room a lot more these days, which it makes perfect sense why they would be. It's kind of interesting that for so long in the past, they haven't been. So that's an interesting shift as well of what I'm seeing, even just in the last few years, especially since the pandemic. I've been seeing that being a lot more prevalent. But yeah, and to your point too about content being created differently, I mean, that's a huge shift that I'm seeing. And a huge shift that, you know, frankly, a lot of people are kind of a little worried about, but at the same time, you know, all these new things popping up, they're just tools. They're just tools. Right. And hopefully that just makes our content that much better, that much more creative, because we can go further faster with some of these tools.
Right. One of the things that I like is I do see a lot of clients starting to realize that the marketing and the buying process starts so much sooner than what they originally anticipated. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that customer, yeah, they may research, they be thinking about this product for a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, they may be working up their savings, or they may be planning to move to a different part of the country, but they're researching it. You know, yeah. The movement we've seen throughout, you know, how consumers and businesses are moving throughout the country and relocating to places where they want to live and do business is just incredible.
Yeah.
And just that process, and people, they want the information on the web, and just such an opportunity there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. As we kind of jump around, one of the challenges sometimes that we run into is we deal with a lot of entrepreneurial type companies, as you know. Some are in the development business, some in the building business.
Yeah.
And even some of the ones that are really large kind of have that mindset, and it can be really good, but sometimes too, you know, that they think that all the consumers are like them. There's a tendency, you know, they have certain tactics that they're really comfortable with, and sometimes we need to adjust those that mix, and and get them to look at the things more broadly. You know, in the world that you're such the expert, yes, in social media, you know, some of them, they're not comfortable with some of those things, or don't expect, don't think that tactic might work because it doesn't appeal to them. But it does appeal to their audience.
Yeah, getting in the mindset of your audience is definitely one of the big challenges for people, for sure, especially as kind of a new generation kind of comes of age and is out more in the working force and making decisions, buying decisions and things like that. You know, getting Gen Z in the mix, I even struggle with that. I'm an older millennial. Last week I spoke at a college marketing course, and I definitely was feeling my age, because I felt like it's just a completely different mindset that college students have. And they're about to be in our working force here in the next few years, of at least the students I spoke with. But a lot of them are making the decisions of purchases now. And so you have to kind of get in their mindset, and they operate completely different from millennials. They operate different from Gen X, baby boomers, and the like. And so, there's a lot of instances where people say, well, I don't like TikTok. Okay, well, is your ideal customer on TikTok? Then you might need to be over there.
Right.
There's a lot of things like that happening in our world right now that I've been witnessing. And it's getting people to break a little bit out of their comfort zone.
Right. One of the things that we've talked about, and it's really, we work with our clients to do, is really think not as narrowly about their marketing as in many cases they have in the past. Targeting is good, but narrow thinking is not good. And sometimes they've not considered how the impact of their marketing and brand, how much it can impact recruiting and attracting people to their business. And so many of so many of our clients, one of their key needs is finding those next workers, finding those workers to fulfill vital roles. You've got a lot of people aging baby boomers that are retiring. They've got to fill that, they want the people who will work for them for the next 10 or 20 years, they hope. There are not many that stay in jobs that long anymore. Those are the exceptions, but they got to fill these vital roles, and and it's true of just so many industries that that we hear about every day. And companies are looking at better ways to fill these positions. And in healthcare, of course, they're having to resort to all kinds of part-time and kind of travel staffing, if you will.
Right. Yeah.
So, but we're seeing it. One of our biggest projects this past year was helping a large industrial company with videos that just spoke to the culture that you wouldn't have expected at this company in this very industrial space.
Yeah.
But just all that they do for their employees. So,
well, yeah, that all speaks, I think, to the brand story too, and that's part of marketing. People also, consumers today, they all care about how you treat your employees, how what materials you source. Like, that's becoming a bigger thing. The values and the brand story is becoming much more important in people's buying decision. It's not just about like what's the cheapest option out there. It's I'm willing to pay more for a product that I know is sourced well, that treats its employees well, that people love working for, has a great culture. It's not the only decision. It's definitely becoming a bigger decision. And I'm seeing it more and more in just the storytelling piece of content in marketing, that, you have to implement that story into everything you do. And it'll make people, one, remember you more compared to your competitor down the street who's just selling 25% off XYZ. It gets you noticed, but it also keeps you memorable.
No, that's right. Well, we all know the power of story. We know how effective it is for us. There are really kind of arts and science. There's kind of an art and a science to telling stories too, and
For
kind
sure.
of ways that we can become better storytellers and make those stories interesting for our clients. For the people that we want to attract, valuable for them. Also that hopefully there's some specific twist where it not only feels real, but a bit unexpected too. So
yeah,
I think we're all working to do that and just see how that works.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. I mean, there's so much that goes into getting in the mindset of the customer, and there's so much science around like just how people's brain is operating to make these decisions. It's really fascinating when you think through just all the different aspects to how people are making decisions. I'm curious what you've seen in that space in terms of like how does decision making affect how you're planning a marketing strategy?
Well, I think, as we done a lot of reading in neuroscience, listened to a lot of podcasts on it. And it's just, sometimes those podcasts allowed me to kind of understand that, a lot of times people are balancing a lot of different considerations. There are a lot of, and we have to win their trust, but they have a lot of emotional drivers, and, and some of them are fundamentally impacted by their old brain. And then some they're also just, they want to make what is a smart decision too. They want to rationalize it, but the work in neuroscience that's now available to us really is incredibly valuable, both in marketing and in sales. And just something that I think we have to take a look at, and sometimes there are things there too that aren't expected, that we find. So, and I think one of the key things that we do kind of is, sometimes you have market research and it says, well, so much of the market, this is the first thing that drives them here, but can you, there's so many competitors chasing this. Can you own it? Can you be valuable? There is your niche with a smaller audience.
Yeah.
So, that's some of the questions that we're that we go through with some of our clients. So I kind of jump
Yes.
topics on you there, but the
What are you finding has been most successful with your clients in applying this?
what's most successful is, I think the most critical thing is kind of getting your clients and your marketing team, to step back from things first and not, not to make too many assumptions. So when you do that and you kind of take a fresh look at it, you tend to see the forest for the trees.
Yeah.
You do some things that frankly are old fashioned and then very fundamental that then allow you to kind of take a harder look at what you're doing and then start thinking about, well, what are the things that we're doing that are tired and and we realize not generating the returns that they need to be doing? What if we fundamentally believe that we need to try some different tactics really every year, just because some of the other ones, the returns will diminish over time.
Yeah.
It's hard to find cases where they do not.
Right. I love that you say that about just stepping back, because I think our world moves so fast that it's hard to take the moment to step back, pause a little bit, and make sure that what you're doing actually makes sense, but also get some perspective. So I think that just the timing piece, our world is just so busy.
Right. Well,
a lot of times people are in a rush, right?
Right. Well, how many times have you gotten a call or an email from a client? Usually it's an email now, or or some type of submittal response to something, and they say, "We're ready. We want this is what we want to do."
Yeah.
And it's great. It's great that they're ready.
Right.
What's more frustrating is when you can see a situation where they're not ready, but they need to. But the good news is they're ready, but it may not be it's what they have in mind tactically may not be the right answer.
Yeah.
And you have to and you have the conversation, and you step back and then help them kind of see where their investment can be better deployed.
Yeah.
And how about if we did it this way?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I actually just right before we got on here to have this chat was having a call with somebody. We were talking about priorities of some of their email sequences versus some of their social ads and some of the things that we were doing. And I had asked the question, are the decision makers in the company, are they emotionally tied to a certain activity? Because if that's the case, then even though it's technically a second priority, it might need to be a top priority. You start to kind of play some of those psychological games of, all right, I'm going to put my suggestion out there of what we think makes the most sense logically, but sometimes there's other emotion drivers that are kind of pushing people to say, no, we want to do this other thing first, and it's this balance of kind of working with all the different departments in a team and to make their marketing work, so it's a tough balance.
Well, I think fundamentally you have just the question, people have these comfort zones. Clients have comfort zones, and stepping into a zone that they've not tried before, even with it's a smaller part of their program, so sometimes habits can, and there can be a part of this has become a habit. There's a bit of a block, and then they see it. So
and they really have to, they have to have some trust in you, and they have to then see that it's working, before they kind of dive all the way in. So there's a lot of psychology that goes into marketing. There's more than I thought. I'll just say, I wish I had taken a few more psychology courses in college.
Yeah, when you talk about the, kind of, improving marketing and generating better returns for clients and doing things that just are more interesting and have more value over time. One of the things that we think is really important too is breaking down silos. So organizations often have silos because you have these,
Mhm.
this group does this and you have these specialties. But if the marketing gets too segmented by silos, fragmented by silos, and it tends to suffer.
Yeah.
Versus if we can get our specialists in these different divisions on the same team. And the strongest organizations you do business with kind of realize that everybody needs to understand the value of that customer and what we provide to them, what our value proposition is. And when you do that, it tends to just improve the results and get everybody on the same page.
Yeah.
And there's just an opportunity there. You talked about values a bit. Values are incredibly important. The millennials have been driven by values as well. It's been a big part to them, but it's with each generation, it's getting more and more important. And values drive brands, values and experience in the plans that we have in place to kind of ensure that consistent customer experience. Really fundamentally, when our branding process starts with values.
Yeah.
A lot of times people, they're always thinking, what is our logo going to look like? What's our name? What's our tagline going to be or whatnot? Let's start about, what your values are and really, what you mean to the customer.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. It's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah.
It's like an iceberg. There's a lot underneath the water.
It's just funny sometimes, that we think we understand where everything is going in our industry. I'll never forget, early in age when social media was getting big and whatnot, and, email had become fairly popular. I had a friend who kind of said, well, email will be dead in 4 or 5 years. We'll just be using the social media platforms. Well, that didn't happen.
Right.
The social media platforms have evolved incredibly and continue to expand and change. Be interesting to see what happened. Email itself, paid in, organic that we own, has been an incredibly powerful tool for us. And you see it just continue. We all have too many emails in our inboxes, and some of us manage those better than others. But we've found how to make that a valuable tool for a lot of customers. So,
yeah, well, and it's interesting. I mean, it's it just becomes a different challenge, right? I mean, because email hasn't gone anywhere. It's still a very valuable marketing tool. I mean, when we talk about values, I mean, that's a pretty big thing for brands, but I mean, especially when you've got a company that has a deeper meaning. And I know you work with a lot of nonprofits. How are you seeing kind of the, the deeper meaning, the greater purpose coming out in the work that you're doing for marketing with nonprofits?
With nonprofits, it's all about, their values. And I think that the values that they have, the experiences that the good ones, are part of kind of helping our communities with, are just moving. I think the key things there is that we run into with our nonprofits is sometimes they've been incredibly good about serving, a needy part of our population. They've had a harder time kind of recognizing how they build their brand in a changing marketplace and such. And marketing was not something that they tended to, to focus on. That's one of the challenges that I've seen. The nonprofit marketplace has become incredibly competitive itself, as different groups, are competing for funding. Some of them used to be able to depend upon United Way and the big corporate grants that
Yeah.
fund that and the big corporate campaigns. But as nonprofits become more prevalent and the needs for them more prevalent, their needs to embrace, understand, and emphasize marketing is become ever more important. And you look at it, in our work with them, we've been fortunate to work with some that just you feel like you could write books about, and they've kind of they're the great examples, and other ones that are very well meaning, but marketing is not in their comfort zone so much. It's not it's something that and it's so fundamentally important.
Nonprofits they've got a lot of good stories typically, and they're not always the best at telling the stories. That's what I've found. They don't understand the importance of putting that out there to their network and helping people cast that vision and catch hold of the vision so that they'll jump on as a donor or as a volunteer or just a cheerleader of their organization. There's a lot that they can be doing, and there's a lot of free tools out there in the world of digital marketing and the digital space here. A lot of people don't think about how to leverage that. But frankly, it's not their job. Their job might be boots on the ground doing the actual work. But there's a lot of potential for nonprofits.
It's essential to their mission, because unless they have a few major donors that just are going to write those checks, they've got to have the income stream from the development side. The development side has to be supported by a marketing message, because even group, some of the nonprofits you may find can be 100 years old. It's and unfortunately some they've lost some of the donors who sustained them for a long time.
Right. Well, and people in nonprofits don't always think about the fact that they really do marketing. It sometimes feels like a dirty word, but they're trying to get their message out to an audience just like a for-profit company is. It's just a matter of what those profits are going towards. That's the difference. And so having that mindset of, hey, just because you're a nonprofit doesn't mean you have to operate like you don't know what you're doing. You can run a nice, great ship and get the word out very well, and you'll do really well if you do. So
right. And it can be purposeful and not seen as a luxury expense or whatnot. Sometimes I think it's almost, do we have the luxury of doing that marketing? I think you have to kind of turn it around. If you don't do that marketing, you're not going to be able to grow and sustain your organization.
Well, and I always think about the handful of nonprofits that my husband and I are pretty passionate about. As a donor, as a volunteer, as just somebody who loves what they're doing, I'm busy. I want to hear what they're doing. I want to know about these different opportunities that they have, the different needs that are popping up. I want to hear the stories of their impact, and getting them, whether it's, even if it's a traditional print thing that pops up in my mailbox, or it's a social media post that shows up on my news feed, or it's an email that pops into my inbox. I appreciate those, because in a busy world, I don't have time to go think through, what does XYZ organization have new? Let me go check out their website. I might have done that maybe 20 years ago when I had more time on my hands, but nowadays I don't have time to proactively go seek it out. So I appreciate when organizations feed me those marketing messages, because it reminds me and reinforces like, hey, their donation is not going anywhere from us, or there's
so many
support
of
from
them,
us.
They have to appeal to a number of different audiences too. What they could be donors that they've worked with, they could be, influencers, people who will take them to new donors, more corporate, institutional, larger gifts, people that they can reach for those kind of things. And it just requires them to have the same kind of disciplines that we have on the corporate side, And
You hit the nail on the head. Discipline.
it does well. Well, what
So a
what
lot
the
of
nonprofit has to do is what we have to do in the
missing.
corporate world too, is we don't have time to get our message. Our client has to get the message very quickly. We have to
Yeah.
engage them very quickly, or if
Yeah.
we don't get them very
100%.
quickly, we've lost them.
Yeah.
And then if we can create their interest, then we can start telling them the story and how we do. They need to understand what we do and how emotionally important it is quickly, and then
Yeah.
start telling that, how we make that happen and how they can be a part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I love the discipline word, because it's not that it has to be this like rigid thing, but it speaks to the consistency piece that every marketer understands.
Right.
You have to have some sort of consistency. You want to post one post on social media or send out one email and expect it to change your whole business. You hear those stories, they're literally 1 in a million, where
Right.
one activity drives success for their whole business. The
Right.
reality is, most of the time it's a series of multiple consistent strategic actions that are helping you get your message out in front of the right people.
Right. We do business in such a fragmented world. They used to say people got 3,000 to 5,000 messages. Now it might be 5,000 to 8,000 messages.
Right.
People are, they are filtering messages so quickly. And that one of the things we have to that's why we have to capture them with things that are emotional, valuable, and in many cases less expected, because they tune out what they feel like they've already heard a million times.
Mm-hmm.
And achieving all that is not easy. That's why, but it requires a lot of thought. But that's why you see the kind of advertising you do on television,
Yeah.
and these big insurance companies that, Kelly's do these things that are just very different, interesting, just to get our attention, to weave us in.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
it's interesting on the other hand with smaller businesses and organizations, you've also got to be authentic in how you kind of in your program. Authentic, people want the real thing and who they can count on. I mean, just I personally have a hard time when I'm looking at potential partners and businesses, and I really can't tell who's behind the wheel. Who's behind the curtain. That anonymity bothers me personally.
Yeah, well, and in today's world, I mean, with social media, you're just seeing more and more trends towards a lot of the, the shorts content, video content, things like what we're doing now, podcast interview. People want to see the real people involved in things. And some of the automated stuff that you did 10 years ago on social media that was engaging then, it's not relevant anymore. People want that behind the scenes look, the insider view, insider tips that you may not have gotten any other way. So I've definitely seen that shift in what people are engaging with on social media. I think it speaks to what you're just saying, just in marketing at large. People want to engage with the real person, not an anonymous brand.
Right. Well, they want to find people too, there are a lot of us that they want to find better ways to do business, better ways to be effective. So they'll take time with the podcast. They'll take time with these blogs and such. And it requires an investment of time, but there is value there, value created there.
Well, and once you build that trust, then you got it. And it's up to you to break it. But a lot of times when you build that trust with a brand or with a customer, they can be very, very loyal, and they'll come back and back and back until you give them reason to not trust you. Right.
Yeah, I know we've covered a good bit here. Just often and kind of jumped around, but this customer value and authenticity. What can they really count on? We deal with, in addition to stuff we do with nonprofits, we work on a lot of things that are relatively new or something, or maybe a slight luxury item, but just just why people can count on that is so important.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
so
Man, well, we've jumped around a lot on some different things about just where the world is moving right now in marketing. I really appreciate all your insights. I'm curious as we wrap up the conversation today. I always like to ask people, and especially with you having seen, you touch so much in the world of marketing and you've seen so much with your clients. But if you were to give someone advice on what they could do today to get their next step towards a marketing win, what would you go tell people to go do today?
oh boy, to get their next marketing win,
Big or small?
big or small.
Doesn't have to be something major, but we all want to walk away with something that we can go do today that's going to help us take that next step.
Well, there's one simple thing that I'm going to suggest to you that for, particularly for people who've been in the business, but I think it's true for people breaking in as well, is sometimes we have our the centers of influence, people who can lead us to customers.
Yeah.
And one of the assumptions, as you're in business longer, those become incredibly important. They're important throughout our business journey. But marketing to them and keeping them in the loop of what you're doing is incredibly important, because even you can have strong referral bases, but you're if you don't market and keep them up to speed on what you're doing, how you've evolved.
Yeah.
Those are opportunities lost.
Yeah.
The other fundamental is, I think this kind of is really listening to, putting yourself in the shoes of your customer, and listening. When you listen and understand your customer, everything gets easy from there.
Yeah.
In my book, just it allows, because then, and if you then figure out how you can deliver value to them, what are the unmet needs, the underserved needs, where you have an opportunity with them.
Yeah, that's so good. I mean, yeah, if you really just pay attention to what questions are they asking, all you have to do is go out and answer those. It becomes very simple to think through how you become of service to your network. So
we do a lot of problem solving. A lot of times what you kind of, while we're doing new things, there are a lot of things we're going back and you're kind of saying, well, here's just a piece that where we've kind of lost, maybe we've lost our way with this program. So and just was the opportunity uncovered. So
right. Well, Burt, thank you so much for sharing so many great tidbits of advice here and sharing so much of your insights after so many years in the marketing space. If people want to get more from you, where should they go online?
Okay. Go to our website, thinkattuned.com.
Thinkattuned.
So,
awesome.
And follow us on social media, and thank you for your help there. We try to share just things that we find interesting in our social media channels to Think Attuned.
Awesome. Well, great. Well, there you have it. Burt Phillips from Attuned Marketing Partners, and the amazing insights he shared about where marketing has been moving recently and what we're seeing in the space right now. Burt, thanks again for joining us.
Thank you, Valerie. Take care.
If you liked what you just heard, please hit subscribe to make sure you don't miss any of our future episodes. And while you're at it, go ahead and leave us a review. That not only helps us out, but it helps others discover great interviews just like this one.